It's yeah, it's 100%. It's incredible. We're both turning 30 this year. But welcome back, one and all, to the LPL. We are obviously a little bit behind our other game, which is going to be BLG versus TT, and we are going to try and jump in and catch up to that as quick as we possibly can. So honestly, coming into this one here, it's still very favored for BLG to continue their undefeated streak.
It is. Quick shout out though, we saw AL in the last series. They were also BLG's last opponent too. AL took a game off of both JDG and BLG. So if you think that, oh, maybe BLG, they're losing a bit of their momentum, maybe it's just AL being good. Even though our top teams have dropped some games to them, you're coming into this game and TT still need to really be on their game if they want to achieve the same, start taking games, maybe take a series.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for BLG, it just feels like this team is going from strength to strength. Yes, they do, much like JDG in that last series, have a game or two where people come in, or teams come in, I would argue, very, very prepared, very set on an idea of how they want to play against these very top-tier teams. But in my head, it just feels like even when you get them once, you know, it's not about just beating once.
It's the double power tap. Again,
yeah, you gotta get a 1-2.
It's a best of 3. You gotta get the second game. That's exactly what I was talking about with LGD, a team which, you know, they're sat at what, 0-5, 0-6 now in the series score. But every single time they come into game 1 and they look like one of the scariest, unironically, one of the scariest teams in the league in game 1. They nearly took a game off of Weibo again in that first game. They took a game off of JDG. They are seriously hitting above their weight. And I think you're completely right. A team like TT, even though they're sat at that 1-4 score, which is very different to how they were doing in spring, they actually had a very impressive spring. You can't really slip up to one of these teams. They have a lot of potential on their roster.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to see new jungler there. We have a replay here where we missed on the bot side, and flash for flash, but it does see TT getting themselves a little bit of the better of Elk on this bot side. Does unfortunately have to use his flash as he gets himself over the wall. No summoners now for the Lucian Nami bot side, but again, again, this is what we want to see from these teams. Again, it comes into the setup of, like, you need to have a way of taking them down, and something that has been consistent for BLG has been that bot side. As we see them kind of coming in from this side of things, we actually get a lovely little graphic. Ooh, I like this. This is cool. Nice little pick and ban.
And I think it goes
left. A lot of junglers banned by BLG. I did know that. Xiao Huang Grin, excuse me, as you know, coming in now, new pickup here for TT, and I'm curious to see how he's able to do.
And, well, I mean, you look at the other new pickup they have, the Aphelios on your screen, 1xN. This guy has been absolutely red hot, particularly on this Aphelios pick. So BLG, despite the fact that they have one of the best AD carries in the world right now in Elk, and of course on being not just the youngest support in the LPL, but also one of our best as well, you can't overlook something like this LDL rookie AD carry picking up his specialty Aphelios.
No, absolutely not. And curious to see that where TT kind of bring this one. Again, a team that made it to the spring playoffs, very, very much so looking to try and emulate that. Not the greatest of starts, 1-4, potentially going 1-5 after 6 series, but only 10 left. That is not a position you want to be sitting yourself in.
Considering how good Ucal in particular was in spring too. LPL, we had a lot of mid to bottom table teams still have incredible mid lane performances. Think of Team WE with Shanks, Ucal on TT. A lot of players really made a name for themselves in that mid lane role. And Ucal has sadly not been able to repeat that same kind of performance, and TT with that have lost a little bit of their steam.
That's literally it. It does feel like they're a little bit maybe, I don't want to say uninspired, but definitely feeling as if they're kind of coming out of this from a little bit of an unfortunate position. There's a nice little lollipop right on top of Elk, who again has no summoners underneath the tower. It's a perfectly executed lane gank, and that is first blood to TT.
Love this. If you see that the enemy team has themselves one of these star teamfight AD carries, don't let them go in even or head into that mid game. Take him down early. We see it against Ruler, we see it against Doozy, we see it against Elk now as well. Taking the summoners, taking the kill. And Shun is going to have to try and get himself onto the map as well, because you can see that the Lee Sin, starting to have some real pressure, has that first kill too. Shun needs to start up in the ante and getting advantages somewhere on the map so BLG can stabilize. When you have such early game champions which can snowball, like the Aphelios kind of being able to combo up with the Nautilus and the Lee Sin, you can't afford to stay behind the pace of the game too long.
That's the big thing. You have to try and find the tempo and dictate it for yourself. We saw from AL in that last series that when they were able to kind of pick and choose when engagements were happening, or even at the such, as such, kind of make sure that JDG didn't get an opportunity to make a decision. That's when they just kept coming out with victories, kept coming out with wins in so many of the side lanes. So curious to see how TT are able to kind of do that. And a great start in that bot side, recognizing, look, no summoners is kind of like a good opportunity for us to get an early easy kill onto something like a Lee Sin, which is going to want to be that early skirmisher. It's great to see.
Sure, and we do have a couple of Lee Sin specialists still around in the LPL. I mean, it's been this was a great conversation I had with my brother about this, because he asked me a question out of the blue. If you could define a region in one champion, what would it be? And Lee Sin is pretty high up there for the LPL historically, even if it's not there right now. We still have a couple of these players which just love to show off in this pick, and it feels like they can just they have extra abilities compared to other Lee Sins around the world.
Yeah, I tend to feel like at least Sins in general from the LPL, it just feels like a rite of passage. It's like you have to be some kind of like level of Lee Sin one trick in order to participate in our league. But we'll see. We'll see how they end up kind of working for it right now. And again, great start here. Has the Iron Spike whip nice and early. Did mean that he is falling a little bit behind in terms of the camp clearing. Shun has just been on a bit of a hard farm for the moment. But again, Shun that's just what the Wukong does. He's not looking to engage. He's not looking to fight. He's looking to just kind of get up to that level 6 alongside Yagao and Bin, who now picked up theirs as well.
Xiaohuan heading back towards this bot side again. The scene of that crime. Summoner's back up and available for Elk. No heal, rather. They have the cleansing flash.
Yeah, they have the cleansing flash, but no way is on getting away from that one there. Nicely done here by Yao Yao to make sure he catches himself a fish when he goes fishing.
Hey, again, returning to the scene of the crime, making sure that these summoners are never available for the BLG bot lane. And they have really stuck to this Lucian Nami throughout the time, through all the time they've really been kind of at their dominant peak in this year from BLG. But the thing about Lucian Nami is that you need to be playing aggressive. I love this approach from TT, not just against the name cards and saying, oh, Elk is a really good team fight menace, really need to get rid of his advantages early on, but also against the champions too. If you're not able to dash forward and take bursty trades, you're not able to play the same kind of lane. If you're dashing backwards and you're having to disengage, that's not how they want to play. TT, they're just abusing that right now.
I think Shun should get level 6 if he's able to take that scuttle. Going for a bit of an aggressive engage. Ucal coming down here, though, with Yao Yao to try and make it work. Flash in with the Tibbers onto On, who does have his flash still on this one here. Flash belly bop onto Ucal, as it's a very scrappy 4v3. Kind of in favor of TTs. They're coming out with the better health bars right now. Yagao looking for a little bit of those cooldowns to see if he can maybe turn this one back around. He will kill off Ucal just before he goes down himself, but it's a 1-for-1 trade.
This is some seriously rocket fuel early game from TT. And what were we just saying? BLG, JDG, they drop games to teams like AL because they come in so very well prepared. TT absolutely doing the same thing again. They're hitting BLG very hard, very early.
Definitely looking to try and be a bit more aggressive, as you're saying. I love seeing this from teams. Again, you play standard, you're probably going to lose. However, the champions that are in the meta right now, the Anti, the Aphelios, they're still exceptionally powerful. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to reinvent how you're using it. That's how I kind of view this for the moment, because it does feel like we're just kind of waiting for 15, 20 minutes. Well, there's more than one way to
How many ways can you use
a
wheel?
There's more than one way to skin a cat. That's what my granddad used to always say. But yeah, I mean, looking at this one here, again, they're just trying to be aggressive, trying to make sure that they're blowing summoners at all times.
They are, and this is so very important, again, because as soon as you're not on the front foot with lanes like the Gragas that wants to shove in the roam, like the Lucian Nami that wants to be pushing forward and dashing forward, your composition, your champions don't play the same way. And yes, there is every chance that you make an over-aggressive play in the next few minutes and things start falling apart afterwards. It's still only a 1,000 gold lead, but this is the kind of gameplay that we needed to see from TT to stop BLG reaching the point in the game where they're strongest, which is where they start grouping up, looking for impressive initiations and skirmishes.
Yeah, no dragon take for the moment, but we are going to see a hook that almost looked like it should have hit. I've seen Nautilus hooks hit a little bit more skeptically, but not going to be for the moment. That's going to be the Rift Herald now picked up here for TT, and we'll see where they're able to put Shelly down and make some moves. But with Shun having that Cyclone coming up very, very shortly, he has eyes on bot side and potentially looking to try and gank after this dragon gets taken.
Yeah, and I think very important that you note that Cyclone, because while the Lee Sin has those 2 kills heading up towards their first item very quickly, Wukong is the best scaling damage jungler in the game. No one really comes close to him right now, at least in the pro meta. Of course, you can talk about maybe some of your AP carries, your Dianas of old or whatever. Well, it's not that old, you know, last couple of seasons, but still, Shun gonna have that ability to impact team fights. I know, right? I missed Diana Jungle. We saw one of those games from Anyone's Legend coming in earlier in the week, but either way, that Wukong is on the bot side of the map, has that Cyclone as you're mentioning, and can flip this play.
Yeah, they can. They know Shun is there, or do they? They're going very aggressive here onto On, who does not have his flash available. It takes about 2/3 of his health bar out from under him as 1XN just throws out the Moonlight Vigil with that combination of the hook and auto attacks from Yao Yao. And that's the thing with the Aphelios. He's just so safe when he gets that Calibrum that it just makes it so difficult to kind of trade back on that. You just kind of have to accept that. You got to hope and pray you're not half health or less.
And particularly with 1XN being really good at kind of utilizing 3-weapon switches, where you run your ammo low at the start of the fight and you switch mid-fight to change up what you're doing with your weapons. You need to be very, very careful about what that Aphelios is switching into next. He'll be switching into his utility weapons soon. Have to drop on one or more of those Sentinel turrets. Shahuangren once again heading towards this bot side, and I really like that you know, debut for this jungler coming in from I believe they were on TT Youth before this point.
Yep.
Has that Herald, has the ability to snowball this map, and this is the kind of way you put your best foot forward and you start snowballing the game early. It gives you a lot of confidence to play the mid game with.
Absolutely, and again for TT, just great to see them going for it. We've seen a lot of teams recently, you know, I remember the last BLG game, I can't remember exactly who it was, had Wen up in that top side. Who had Wen? Who has Wen in the top side? I can't remember exactly
Didn't he just come in for IG?
IG, yes, of course.
Yes,
thank you.
The Gangplank. I was just like, we cast that
Yeah, I was
yesterday.
like, we casted that. Who was it? I couldn't remember it.
Almost made Uzi's redebut a bit of a disaster.
Exactly. But again, like, I'm liking to see these LDL players coming in, showing that they have the mechanics to be here. It kind of comes down to game sense then at that point. It's like, yes, mechanically you are good enough to kind of go against some of these players, but are you going to be able to go toe-to-toe against some of the veterancy, some of the clutch plays that comes out of people like Kanavi or Shun in this particular example? Shun's still a young player himself, but really showing that he does have those clutch potential that you need from any kind of player who wants to make their mark in the LPL.
Firing that all again, just trying to chunk out someone so they can finally play aggressive, having to blow everything.
Yeah, blew a cleanse and the flash. They're going to see the hook come in, but that's a great tidal wave to disengage.
Teleport.
Now, yeah, it's a little overextended. TP coming in. A flash in to get the kick away. Going to be a knock up, and they're going to try and take out this Nautilus. It's taking forever. And as well as that, the Malphite's been left in no man's land. You could see that Elkanon kind of looked at him for a second and went, maybe next time, buddy. And they backed themselves away. It was a TP invested by Ucal, but at the end of it all, it's still a 1-for-1 trade.
Shun is heading down towards his bot side. The Herald was still in inventory. TT looking to stick around, looking to get some plates. Not sure if 1XN was in range that it goes completely to Shahuangren, and now Shun can re-engage.
He can re-engage, and he's going to look for the Cyclone, but great buffering there by Hoya to make sure he's just not able to get caught out, with the Gravitum still available to 1XN as well. Makes it so difficult to really go underneath that tower, so dangerous for the side of BLG. But despite the Herald going down, it's BLG who get themselves a counter push.
And again, worth noting that while the kills on screen and the players on screen are going the way of TT, Gold's still very even, and Yagao is now making a play.
He's trying to, absolutely trying to, but unfortunately for him, was not able to 100%
He was reminding 1XN to stay hydrated. He's like, yo, dude, I got a barrel for you, got a cask. Remember, I know you're kind of like debuting here, but you got to keep your health in mind. Elk, sadly, couldn't really quite do the same at the start of this fight. Uses everything to stay alive. I really love the way that they play that disengage. Use On to kind of tank up the Lee Sin Q, use that tidal wave to buy some disengage. But at that point, the fight's already been committed to. The teleports come in, and Bin tries to play a bit of a mind game with kind of flash forwards before he kind of goes into the ult. Sadly, not able to disengage himself, gets stuck in the play.
Yeah, gets a little bit of a mind game going, but does get the kill to trade back as well. It's only 1,000 gold now for TT for the moment. And again, just trying to keep the pace of this game, but I do feel a little worried because, yes, normally when you're looking at some of the the bigger teams in our league, when they Weibo, the JDG and stuff like that, when the game gets a little scrappy, they kind of find themselves lost in the sauce. BLG created the sauce. BLG are the chefs that have created this recipe in the LPL. Of like, they have no problem going because they're the original ones. Their game times are so low on average that they are literally like just like swimming towards these game objectives, either winning or losing.
That's great, actually. I love that. They are the chefs of the LPL right now.
Let them cook.
They've got some practice at it too, and they've had a heck of a lot of success with it. So, TT, they're going to have to see how long they can stand the heat in the kitchen. Still ahead in gold. Minorly, they have some important gold in some important places. The Lee Sin is starting to snowball, but that Lee Sin is very hard to execute later into the game. Yes, if you manage to catch out Elk a lot of the damage with BLG goes with it. This is basically a 1.5 damage threat, particularly because Shun can add something in with that Wukong. You can never throw that one aside, but still, BLG needs to be very careful about how Elk is positioning, particularly in these fights right now. He has himself an army buffs.
Indeed, first dragon for TT, not of the game. Yeah, going to be the first focus here. Does eventually go down, but it is traded back for the Wukong. That's a fantastic cast to catch out 1XM, but he's got red and white, so he's going to be able to heal up and get some decent damage down in those very short corridors. They're trying to see if they can catch out the Nami, and they will. 5-3 now on this play. 2 kills in favor of 1 for TT, and they get themselves the dragon. Really, really well done here by TT to, again, get the objective and get themselves a little bonus afterwards.
And seriously well played by Yagao in particular. Manages to somehow get the CC down before he goes down himself. Shun over-engaging just a little bit. You can see that BLG, if this Lucian is not in the right position, they can struggle to get that immediate damage down and be able to clean up afterwards. BLG starting to, again, get held to account in some of these first skirmishes.
This is risky. A lot of resets coming back in here, but with the Gore Drinker available for the Lee Sin, will not have ult for the moment, so no flash kick coming in. It looks like BLG want to try and contest this. They should be able to. This Rift Herald not taken very low until right now. Here we go. It's going to be taken down. Not quite sure who got that particular objective, but everybody backing away from BLG. It looks like it was secured by the side of TT. As Yao goes forward to try and maybe catch out Shun, bonks him on the head just with a little bit more damage, and now you can see they're all kind of running away because Yao realizes he's bitten off a little more than he could chew. Flash over by the Lee Sin to try and make something work there. The Rift Herald goes to the wayside, and I believe it was TT who secured it, but they had to give up a kill for it.
It fades into the abyss. BLG deny the pickup, so TT, they find themselves with their first fight loss of the game, and as soon as that happens, you keep looking back to that scoreboard at the top, and you look back to the gold, and the gold is still very similar. BLG, they're not being cowed away from these team fights. It is absolutely their specialty. And we're going back right towards that dragon fight. See that Yagao did manage to get a good amount of CC and damage onto Shun as he went into that fight. It means that the continued DPS is all on Elk, and Elk has to deal with Hoya. That's not who he wants to be dealing with. He wants to be dashing on someone squishier, was not able to in this fight. Sadly, TT couldn't replicate that in the next one, because in fact their own AD carry was out of position for the Herald fight.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's still actually a very even game despite all these kills and changes, because BLG are still fighting back just as hard. And I'm going to kind of cast our eyes over to the right-hand side of the screen, and the left-hand side, where you can see how just chaotic these fights have been. Normally it's everyone's flashes are down or everyone's flashes are up. We're on a very similar timer. These are kind of half up, half down, not quite there. Maybe we're going to have them available in 2 minutes 30 for this next dragon. I don't know, Nymaera, but the great thing is here is that these teams are not leaving anything out to dry. They're just straight up going, no, we got to try and make things work. And they are, and a great credit to TT. They're going in unperturbed and unafraid.
Now they're reaching past the 1 item spike, heading up towards 1.5 to 2. Dragon spawning in 2 minutes. Going to get to the point where 2 items are going to be on the board soon at that point. Trying to think who I want to cast my eyes to on the side of TT, because they have a lot of playmakers across the board. They have a lot of initiation. I think Ucal on the Annie, we see this pick an awful lot. That will be an important extra bit of damage to see if they can get past the front line. Ucal can revisit some of his success from that spring. He's been struggling a little bit in summer to find the same level of form he did at the start of the year, but TT, if you can use that engage to buy some space for Aphelios, 1x's Aphelios sat at the 303 as well, and very much in a position to take some scalps off of BLG.
Absolutely, and the crazy thing is, though, is that because first strike and just kind of a couple of plates and stuff like that, Elk is still ahead in terms of item parity. He has gone directly for a rapid fire cannon, though, which is the very curious thing.
The item build for the Lucian is it's different, right? Because you see this kind of build when you go for press the attack and or lethal tempo, because it's more auto attack focus. Because you have the Nami, you still want to go towards the first strike kind of burst trade. But with these items, it's more about continual auto attack DPS. His continued DPS is good, but the positioning is so hard to pull off in these fights. Elk, he's given himself a pretty hard job in regards to trying to pump out that DPS, but it's very important he does so because he is the threat for BLG.
Absolutely, and look, the Gragas will still do damage. Of course, you just mentioned it as well. In terms of pro meta, the Wukong is just the most scary DPS jungler we have in the meta right now. I've seen plenty of players, specifically, you know, Kanavi coming out with plenty of kills, and definitely looking the better for it. But now we're going to have ourselves 30 seconds till this dragon spawns. You can see Bin and Hoya trading slaps in this bot side. Ucal kind of hovering off to the side. Now he's been spotted out, so Bin not going to fully engage onto this one here, hoping to get a favorable 1v1, because it was going to always be a 1v2 at the end of the day.
Bin if we're going to talk about differences between Spring and Summer, mention it for Ucal. Bin is playing a tank. He does that nowadays, folks. For those of you that haven't caught up after MSI, Bin has been convinced, finally, to play a bit more of a facilitating role for his team. He is in a position with Flash and ult, potentially could go on to the clump of TT. Dragon has spawned, and guess what? We're ready to fight again.
Yes, we are. No Flash though on the Lee Sin. That's a big thing. We'll be able to kind of get those Flash kicks in. Neither does Shun, but a couple more seconds and both these junglers will have a full plate of summoners to work with, and I think that's what exactly both of them are. They're using the excuse of pushing in that mid lane to try and make sure they get themselves that Flash back up and available. No Flash for Yao as we look for a full engage here. Hoya seeing if he can be a bit more aggressive, but he's being aggressed right back on top of it. Gets burnt down so easy now. Yao has to try and run away. He just got his Flash back off cooldown, but wasn't just enough, and that's going to be 2 swift kills over to BLG, the Dragon as well, and this is what I was talking about. You may love having all these scrappy fights, but BLG thrive in it.
They play it out so well, split the fight exactly the way they want to, and Yao tries to distract towards the bottom side. Now we've got Yagao getting caught out briefly.
I mean, is he caught out or is he catching them out? Because already we're seeing the flash of the kick there from Xiao Huan Gren just having to be popped out. Great damage from 1xN. Does mean that Yagao just has to be a bit more respectful, but all this is all happening in the mid lane. Nobody goes down, and that's going to be the Dragon confirmed.
Dragon confirmed, and now Baron is on the table. Next time a fight like that happens, Baron goes with it. That's probably the turning point. The next big fight is the one to keep your eyes on. We're even enough in gold still. We have, again, you were talking about the uneven summoner timings. That's going to be important to look for as well. 1xN has Flash, and on the other side, Elk doesn't. Use that to get a kill in this one. Look what happens with Hoya, because Hoya is basically going in 1v5. Thinks he can maybe use the W to give himself a bit more kind of damage resist. But while this is happening, Yao is also trying to play Disruptor, but both of the people going in from TT don't have the VOD backup from actual damage. The BLG get to focus down both of them.
And again, great zoning tidal wave coming out from On. He's been really on point with those. And again, it doesn't feel like it's one of the most impactful summoners in the game or ultimates in the game, but either to catch someone out or to just straight up men that cannot follow back up. It gives you those extra crucial sections to make sure you're able to burst somebody down.
No, I think Tidal Wave is one of the it kind of reminds me a bit of like a Renata ult as well, right? Where it's very impactful and it splits the front line from the back line. It pins someone in place with a knock-up and everyone else tries to scatter behind it. Gives you a couple of seconds to clean out that front line, which is very important, again, for Elk. Elk's positioning is hard to pull off on the Lucian when you're in an auto-attack build against this many mobile engaged threats. He's doing some more damage here, though.
A hell of a lot of damage as he's Kraken Slayer in his back pocket. Bot lane turret gets confirmed by Hoya while the mid lane is posturing for the moment. And 6-6 in kills, pretty much an even game. Only a couple of hundred here or there. Not exactly too much to be making advantage of, but it does mean that TT, despite all their pushing, despite all their huffing and puffing in that early game, they find themselves at an equal point. And again, when we come down to the standard 5v5s, I've just got to favor BLG. They just know how to play these teams. They know how to play these fights.
Absolutely, and you know what? We're actually going to be seeing JDG BLG fairly soon. It's within the next week. It's coming up really soon. And this reminds me of how BLG play against JDG, because BLG know that they are team fighters. Even though JDG are the best team fighting team in the league, and they've shown that multiple times at this point, they still just try and make it work. Even if they're matching a strength with another strength. TT are doing exactly the same thing to BLG here. They're saying, okay, you like to team fight, so do we. Let's see who's better on the day. And for me, that's such an entertaining way to play out these games. I think TT, they needed that early game to go well to give them the edge in those mid-game team fights, and it didn't quite crest that same amount of gold to see them into the advantage. They are starting to slow behind the pace of the game now, and if they lose one more fight, Baron goes with it, probably first game as well.
We'll wait and see. Still plenty for TT to do. Remember, still have themselves a Ucal as Elk gets caught out here by the ultimate of the Nautilus. The Tidal Wave ain't going to save you from all that burst. This is exactly what I was just about to talk about. Ucal with that Tibbers can do a hell of a lot. Unfortunately, though, there's no real objective apart from the Baron, and you didn't take away any of the front line here from BLG. So yes, killing off Elk is fantastic, but it's not exactly going to lead to anything else.
The thing is, I feel like Elk was the one source of damage. If I were TT, looking at the state of the game, you know what? I might have chanced it. Killing off the jungler or the AD carry normally gives you a better inroad towards that Baron, but they don't feel bold enough. They'd like to try it again. They used a couple of resources to get towards that Elk kill. And because they don't take any objectives on the map, Finn gets to push in this bot side. Has to claim a bit more advantage for himself on this Malphite, who is going to become a bit of a scary frontline in the next few minutes, and we actually get a reset. Most of the time, those fights will lead to a Baron, but it doesn't this time.
How much is that turret on? That's what I need to know. You gotta click it, Observer. God damn it. You have to click it in order for it to pop up on the bottom left. There's a little Observer tip for you, but sadly, we shall not know. I'm gonna say single-digit HP. That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna confirm it for myself, obviously, in my own head canon. And that's what it is. That's just how it is.
Let it be shown on the record that it was single-digit HP. I mean, that might be some 0 HP if you were punted back into the team, goes into the wall instead. Yagao, a bit more of a facilitating role on the Gragas. He's been playing that a lot for his team, obviously. Yagao has been a heck of a player for BLG. A lot of people overlooked him for a little while, and then suddenly he started reaching back-to-back finals, suddenly started to ramp up his performance more and more. On this Gragas, maybe he can set up his team for success. The flash doesn't quite work.
No, but it does force out the flash there from Elk. But now you've left yourself in a bad position. They can turn this fight right the way around. Bin with the unstoppable force finds 3 onto the backside. And that is the carry Bin performance we've been waiting for. He's been a bit silent this game, but this particular play was all him all the time.
Gigabin strikes back when BLG needed the most. The Malphite, who's been sat on the side lane the whole game, comes to play. And now, with these deaths, you've got to imagine that at least vision control on top side is going to fall the way of BLG. But once again, these fights are closer than maybe BLG would like. Very close on that flash at the start of it. And now BLG will finally go towards the Baron. The smite's down. Ucal can TP in, but Yaoyo won't be there either. I think BLG, they have this.
They might have it, but do they have the fight afterwards? Ucal can TP in afterwards. There it is. So you're going to have Hoya and 1xN there before anybody else. So it's a 3v5 for the moment, but BLG still waiting on summoners and cooldowns. There's a good explosive cast to catch out Ucal, who has to proto belt backwards as Elk goes a little bit more aggressive. He knows he's not in any real danger without the Nautilus being here. Now it's a full native 5v5. These health bars going a lot lower for the side of TT than they are for BLG. Bin goes in again and finds himself a 2-man knockup. Back-to-back fights. It's Gigabin making sure that BLG know how to take these fights. It's going to be a 5-for-1, and that is BLG 100% on the board.
It is a valiant, bold, brave approach from ThunderTalk Gaming in this game. Try and hit BLG early and then match them in the team fights, but they just can't do it. BLG, their solo laners coming out with some back-to-back big plays in back-to-back big fights. The Baron's gone, the map's falling apart, and despite the game being close in team fights up until this point, BLG have now found themselves the first real advantage of this game.
And again, great moves here from Elk just to keep himself alive, which means the Lee Sin just gets overextended.
Just waits for the Q to land, flashes backwards, and manages to win the mind game against Shuffle and Grunt. If that had managed to go in, that managed to hit the 80 carry back into the team, the damage would have been pretty exceptional. 1xN just about survives at the start of it. Ben can't close him down, but at the end of the day, he's not hitting anyone squishy. And if you're dealing with the Malphite, you're not dealing with anyone else killing the rest of your team. Elk gets to clean up more than healthily enough and does again in this Baron pit. A lot of this game for TT is, can you get to Elk? They very nearly did it under the mid lane turret. They weren't even close in the second one, and it goes even worse.
Yeah, and again, just jumping on the 1xN. It's like Bin has just got a heat-seeking missile. Feels like a targeted, like it's like a Vice eats and assist in that particular play. It's just, he's just able to find the 80 carry every single time. There's just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, there's a particularly famous quote about what computers are, and they're effectively rocks that we've fooled into thinking. And that's exactly what we've done with Malphite now, except we've fooled him into somehow becoming like advanced weaponry. He has like the target reticule, target acquired, Skynet is online, and it's going straight towards that Aphelios.
Again, how do you come back into this with TT? We're all full of praise, and rightfully so for the side of BLG, but for TT, what started off so brightly with this Lee Sin combination, you can see just not quite having that same level of effectiveness in those mid-game team fights. BLG just know how to fight. They know what they want to do, and already starting to feel that pressure coming in. That's on, yeah, I get it. You're on the Lee Sin. You're going to try and go in on those Qs, but that's Bin. I mean, you're literally doing negative damage to him. You are taking more passively from that Sunfire than you are dealing to him.
Bin has himself that ultimate ready. Again, it's a long-range ultimate, you've got to remember. It can go over these walls, even though he's pushing in that mid lane. He can ult from out of Fog of War. The vision's there right now for ThunderTalk, but can they see off this defense? They're trying to break this siege as best they can. Weather it, the BLG, they're not letting up.
No, they really aren't. That's going to be the inhibitor turret down. Maybe look for an explosive cast there. Hoya, the tank of your team, almost taken out there by Elk. Finally has himself a mythic into that Gale Force, but having this crit build doing so much right now. That extra range with the Nami just basically bursting out the tank.
Being rewarded for this build, actually. I was a little bit skeptical of it. Thought maybe going towards the auto-attack centric build into a team that was hard to position into would have made it a little bit perilous for BLG to play out this game instead of focusing around a more ultimate-centric first strike build, but it has worked for them. BLG, they are still on the map. The recalls haven't reset yet. There was a chance that there was another fight brewing on the horizon, as it has done the whole damn game. They really basically haven't stopped fighting. And finally, we get ourselves a reprieve.
Yeah, that's the big thing. We're getting ourselves a little moment to breathe, and for TT, they gotta breathe. They gotta figure out sort of nearly 10k gold down at the 30-minute mark of the game. And I mean, look, you have a 3-1 3-1-3 Aphelios who's got 3 items. You're not bad in terms of your burst. I will say for Ucal, I'm not the biggest fan of the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. I feel like your job is to burst Elk. You gotta have that damage. I think a Shadow Flame would just be so much more value here.
It's a difficult situation. A lot of the time with the Rylai's, you're buying it more for the HP on Annie than you are for the actual slow. But if you have to be tanking up the damage, and as you said, if you've used your combo and you have to worry about your own HP afterwards, you're probably not in the best spot, folks. Death Cap, Shadow Flame, something like that has been a big DPS item for the Annie. If you're using it to slow down the front line, I think you're already in a difficult spot. Completely agree. I think Ucal had the agency to kill out this game, and he's sadly gonna not be able to do quite as easily with this build.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know you mentioned, obviously, it's more for the health than anything else, but even the slow, like, who are you slowing? You know what I mean? Like, the amount of dashes and blinks and just things to get, like, to cover the distance is just so much right now for the side of BLG that Rylai's Crystal Scepter CC, quote-unquote, is just negligible at this stage into the game, especially with the cooldown reduction coming out for so many of these players. But I digress, and again, it kind of just comes down to, you know, different players, what they feel like they need in the moment. I am not a pro player. I will not pass judgment on them, but I shall make note of it. You will. You have a lot more say in it, though. I just shout out things, you know? I just have the big shouty
There's been a great need to shout at things for the amount of team fights in this game. Culling pulled out again. Remember, this Lucian build is less about the culling. He needs to dodge away from that hook, though. Just about gets away with it.
Just about say that for the moment, it'll be a little bit harder here for TT to try and hold this one here. They are doing it fairly well for the moment, but only having the red and white, no green gun, no Calibrum here for 1XN makes this a short-range hold. It's Hoya. See how much damage he takes just from the poke of Elkanon, just having so much more agency to just keep him at bay. And with Baron spawning in 8 seconds, Dragon Soul in 20, I mean, this is BLG's game. It's their game to lose. And now we're going to see TT getting caught out. They're going to see a good kick. It lands on the 3 people, but you can see already the damage from this Gragas. Going to put out the explosive cast to try and catch out Hoya, but he flashes away after the fact. Nobody goes down, but health bars are starting to dwindle.
TT having... Whoa, there we go. There's the ult.
Yeah, there it is. Bin finds himself on the Yao Yao. You would argue it's not the priority target, but they don't care because they're going to take out Hoya. That is your front line dead and buried. 1XN almost going down here. Not quite able to be hit by the last drink of the Gragas. Finally will get hit by the belly bop and finished off by the Lucian. That's going to be game 1 going over to BLG as they continue to look for a perfect series and continue their undefeated series split in the regular split.
BLG should consider renaming themselves to Lightning because Thunder comes second to them. Thunder Talk Gaming, they tried as they might in the early game and in the team fights, but they just could not face off against BLG.
No, they really, really couldn't. And honestly, love the aggression coming out from TT right at the beginning. They really, really forced to try and, you know, make things happen, get the